And everyone out there ask themselves, am I a wandering generality? Am I someone who doesn't really know who they are, doesn't really know who they were, doesn't really know who they aspire to be, doesn't really know their core values or their core aspirations or their core beliefs? If you are, that's okay. We've all been there. But the only wrong answer is to not figure that out.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soul Purpose Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Watson, and I've been really pumped, really excited to have this gentleman on today. And his story is really dynamic. And for as young as he has done a lot of moving and shaking. And he is really, truly, I consider him more than an influencer, but an agent of change, just with high integrity, high grace, and always wanting to learn more. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him before he introduces himself. But he, at age 26, was actually involved in an almost fatal car accident, and he questioned everything. His father passed away when he was only 2 years old. And even then, he thought about, gosh, what is this really about? He questioned everything. Did he live a life that was true to himself? And I love this part. How courageously did he fight for what he believed in? How fiercely did he love? These are things he questioned. Not liking his answers and filled with regret, he decided to change forever. That gives me chills. Today, he's a professional speaker, a peak performance business coach and consultant, and the co host of this amazing podcast, the Next Level University podcast. Between speaking, podcasting, coaching, consulting, that's a lot, man. He has clocked and tracked thousands of hours of inspiring, motivating, and educating others on how to master their systems. I love it. And design a magnificent life on their own terms. Again, I'm just getting chills reading this right now. He believes that life is about choices, and he grew up his entire life hearing stories about his father. And he can tell you from experience that how you die isn't going to matter. What's going to matter is how you choose to live. So without further ado, I give to you, Mr. Alan. Oh, I'm so excited to see you today. How are you today, sir?
Wow, Jennifer, that was fire. What a strong intro. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited for this because of how excited you are. And I'm excited to add value.
Thank you so much for being here. And we're going to jump right in here in just a minute, Alan. But I have to tell you, you do have a lot of cool journeys and nuances in things you learned and you grew up very fast. You know, losing a
Mm.
father, you grow up very, very fast. I would love you to say kind of a little bit in your own words to the audience, just what has brought you to the journey you're in right now. You're making massive, just high integrity impact. And I watch you all the time, Ellen. Tell us a little bit what's led you to this point of creating impact the way that you do.
If you're out there listening right now, I have a guarantee for you. No matter what you are, who you are, or where you grew up, or where you're headed, you have suffering in your future. You have emotional pain in your future. It is a part of life. But what you do when you're in emotional pain, that's going to dictate how your life turns out.
Yeah.
When it's dark, that's when you can see the stars.
Yeah.
That's when you can see guides. I saw two guides. I saw Tony Robbins' TED Talk. If you haven't read it or listened to it, I highly recommend it. My favorite TED Talk of all time. And then secondly, there's a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. We've since interviewed her. She's a woman from Australia who worked in hospice for 8 years with the terminally ill.
Mm.
For 8 years, she thought her job was to take care of the terminally ill. What her real job was to listen. She said she noticed, I wish, I wish, I wish. All of them were saying, I wish, I wish, I wish. They all had regrets, reflecting on their life.
Mm.
I have carried a flashcard in my pocket ever since with the top 5 regrets of the dying on it. The first regret of the dying, the number one regret of the dying is I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me.
Mm.
So again, yes, dreams put in my heart, aspirations, trying to be a Fortune 50 CEO, going to WPI, getting straight A's in high school, all great. All great. Okay. Aim high and you'll have choices. Also great. Very, very true. Okay. But the thing that I come back to is, are your choices your own?
Mm.
And are they based on that inner calling, or are they based on what society wants for you, or
Yeah.
what your parents want for you, or what your friends want for you, or what your judgmental relatives want for you?
Yeah.
I've never met a single person who doesn't have family members or friends who believe they should be different than who they really want to be.
Yeah.
And if you can have the courage to live in your own authenticity, I believe you will be very, very, very successful, not just successful, but also fulfilled. But if you do not do that, if you don't have the courage to say to the world who you are and what you really want, then you might end up with regret like I had.
Yeah.
And life is about choices, and make sure you're making choices congruent with what you really believe. And I
Yeah.
think that's the main message.
I write down all of your quotes,
Mm.
and I'm a quote person, but I steal all your quotes too. I'm just going to say
Perfect.
that right here, live on my podcast. I'm at least owning it, right? There's
Of
integrity
course.
right there. All right. You said aim high and you will have high choices. I love that. But I love the caveat with this because I think a lot of us, and we've had a discussion about this off screen, Alan, are they the choices we want or for someone else? And I'm seeing a lot of this where we're doing things all the time for all other people. And not to be melodramatic, but I'm seeing people become these walking corpses, right? Doing the
Mhm.
accolades, right? Getting the good grades, making the six figures or whatever that is, but it's not really something they want. And I just see them slowly, okay, kind of pulling away from their truth. And you can just see it. Like they're just, I call it the walking corpse. What do you think is happening right now in our society with people? Do you think that we're not standing in our truth, majority of us? Or do you
Mhm.
think something else is going on? What would you say to that right now?
A lot of us have what I refer to as a pleasure centered paradigm,
Mm,
not a fulfillment centered paradigm. So eating donuts is pleasurable, but it's never going to fulfill you.
right,
Getting love and accolades is pleasurable and enjoyable. Sincerely, getting applause after a speech is enjoyable, but it's not going to fulfill you, because at
right.
the end of the night, when your head hits that pillow, are you proud of the man or woman you've become?
Mm,
Are you proud of the choices you've made? And for me, I like to reverse engineer regret. I don't want to live with regret, because I had so much at 26, even though I had a beautiful girlfriend. I had tons of corporate friends. I had tons of college friends. I had tons of high school friends. I remember thinking I might be in the wedding party of 11 different weddings and the best man of four. And I remember thinking to myself, how am I going to do all these weddings? But my point is that, like, yes, I had a lot of love and respect from many, many, many people. But when I had that life or death moment, it it wasn't I wasn't proud of the life that I lived.
yeah,
I wasn't proud of the man that I became. I drank too much and too often. I chased external validation. So to answer your original question, I think that human nature I think our lowest self wants to seek external validation from everybody else. I think that there's a place for that, but I think that our highest self knows that we have a calling bigger than that.
yeah,
And if you don't answer that calling and live in that calling, I don't think you'll be fulfilled. Yes, you'll have a lot of pleasure and you'll have a lot of fun, but you won't be fulfilled. Fulfillment is a different feeling. And I
mm,
ask my clients this all the time. I say, from 0 to 10, how fulfilled are you?
yeah,
And a lot of times they'll say 7 or 8 or 9. And I'll say, okay, what would you get you closer to 10? The answer is always something virtuous.
yeah.
It's never like, oh, I really wish I'd eat more donuts, or I wish I'd watch more porn, or it's like none of those things are ever going to fulfill you.
Mhm.
They're not going to. They are pleasurable. That's the problem. Angry Birds is fun, but you're never going to be like, oh, I'm so glad I played Angry Birds for 8 hours today. So that's the thing. I think that we live in a society and a culture with technology that has put pleasure at our fingertips all the time: salt, sugar, fat, convenience stores, chips. Like, there's so many vices at our fingertips,
Yeah,
and the willpower that it takes to play the long game and to do what fulfills you and to work hard and to be character driven and to go to the gym and to stay in shape and to eat nutritious food and to be monogamous in your intimate relationship and to do all these wonderful things that truly are, they have value.
yeah,
There's so much pleasure at our fingertips, but none of those things are ever going to really fulfill you. And that's what I would say to everyone listening: is optimize for fulfillment, because integrity over everything, character over everything, fulfillment. What's going to fulfill you is growth and contribution, and none of that other distraction stuff is going to really fill that void, no matter how much you
yeah,
try. And I think we all kind of know that. I just don't know if we know it, if that
yeah.
makes sense.
I love that. And, with pleasure, it's never enough. I know I used to be a people pleaser and need the accolades. I was a high level athlete for many years. I was an All American college, and I went into this connection of always needing more. And
Mhm.
I had to step back and it wasn't fulfilling, right? And I found out to create my edge in fulfillment, I had to create my edge in peace of what I believed was good, true, and right for me and stick to that. And it took a lot of years to get like disconnect that need for accolades. And that was pleasurable. But it took a while to actually step back. And now I actually get it. Some people, I don't believe, Alan, some people even know truly what fulfillment is. I would
I
love
know.
you to explain that. You said some examples about pleasure, but it's like talking to people about what intuition is. They're like, yeah, I know what it is. And you ask them, they're like, well, I don't really know what it is. What is fulfillment? What's the definition? How is it different than pleasure? Explain that to me a little bit.
Oh, I appreciate this question and this conversation so much. Um, I'll start with a lot of people say, I just want to be happy. I often tell this story of John Lennon and his teacher basically gave a homework assignment of what do you want to be when you grow up? And John Lennon said happy. And the teacher said to John Lennon, you don't understand the assignment. And John Lennon apparently said, like, you don't understand life.
Right.
Okay, great story. Here's the problem. Life is about being happy. True. But we don't know what happiness actually is. We haven't defined it accurately, and we certainly haven't been taught how to sustain it.
Mm,
I think happiness is the wrong label
mm,
because most people misplace happiness as pleasure.
yeah.
It's like, who here has had a weekend that was just tons of fun and a blast and lots of laughs, but at the end of it, and maybe you drank, maybe you whatever, at the end of it, you didn't feel fulfilled at all and
Mm,
you weren't happy and you went back to your job that you don't like and you realized this isn't actually sustainable.
mm-mm.
If anyone's had that experience, I certainly have.
Yeah.
That's because you're optimizing for happiness and pleasure, not for fulfillment.
Right.
So I'll explain what I have this I call it the happiness framework and it's broken into sub facets. Okay. So I give speeches on this at times and I absolutely love this because to me this is what matters. Okay. Happiness is actually broken up into several different categories, sub facets. The first one is joy.
Yeah.
The second one is pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is fulfillment.
Mm,
Okay, joy is being in the process of enjoying what you do. So
mm-hmm.
right now, I'm enjoying this conversation with you. So I'm in joy. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying. Okay, that's in the present moment.
Right.
Pleasure, I think, is if then.
Mm,
If I eat this donut, then I'll have pleasure. If I eat this Oreo, then I'll have pleasure. If I play this video game that gives me a dopamine hit, then I'll have pleasure.
right.
If I achieve this trophy,
Mm-hmm.
if this podcast episode goes well. See, but it's result reliant.
Yeah.
And most of the time, especially if you're climbing a big mountain, you fail forward. So
Mm-hmm.
you're if success requires failure and you want to be successful, but yet you need to fail all along the way, but
Mm-hmm.
yet failure hurts
Mm-hmm.
and your misbelief is that you're supposed to have a pleasure centered life.
Mm-hmm.
See, you're starting to see the problem. So, third and final, and this answers your original question about fulfillment. Fulfillment is the one that most people don't understand. And it's this. Fulfillment only comes, I believe, when you are living in your calling and
Mm,
when you are growing toward your highest self and contributing beyond yourself
mm,
in a way that's unique to you that honestly only you know. So right now, you and I could go eat fast food together and it would be pleasurable,
mm-hmm.
but we wouldn't feel good about ourselves
Mm-hmm.
afterwards.
Right.
Also, you and I could go to the gym together, get a great workout,
Mm-hmm.
and both of us could find a way to make that enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be that pleasurable, it would be really hard.
Right.
But afterwards, we're going to feel fulfilled. We're going to feel good about us.
Yeah.
We're going to feel good about ourselves. And to me, that self esteem, that self worth, that self confidence, that self belief, it has to be built. Self respect, it has to be built by keeping the promises you make to yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you have this misbelief that life is about happiness and then you define happiness as fun, you're in trouble. You're
Yeah.
in trouble. And so that's actually one of my main missions is to bring this new awareness to the world where it's like, honestly, I had a pleasure centered paradigm for the first 26 years of my life. I was never fulfilled and I never knew why. And I'm on a mission to make sure that other kids aren't set up for failure
Yeah.
in this regard.
I I love how you explain fulfillment. That
Mhm.
really fulfills me. Just hearing that. And one thing I say is, with fulfillment too, as you're expressing your truest self, that can be scary sometimes, but it really creates, if you find this, when you're really in full alignment with you and it feels so fulfilling, you have such deep connection with people.
Mhm.
I think you communicate better. I think you get more of a fulfilled conversation, no matter if it's personal or business. Would you agree with that? That it makes things more deep, even if it's a short conversation or a long conversation? Like there's this connection that happens when you are truly showing up as you and wanting to give. Like you said, I love it what you said, the highest version of yourself and beyond yourself. Would you agree with
Mhm.
that?
100%. I
Yeah.
think that we live shallow lives, unfortunately, more and more and more so.
Yeah.
Like all of us, so I have 5,000 Facebook friends, whatever, blah, blah, blah. The thing is, though, is like I can get 100 likes on a photograph, but none of that is fulfilling.
Mm,
But a deeply meaningful conversation with one of those people when we're talking about something we're both sincerely passionate about, that's fulfilling.
yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with likes on Facebook. I want to
Yeah.
influence people, and I want to have an influence, and I want to be a leader in the digital age. Like it's got its benefits.
Right.
But I think that we're chasing. I mean, Jennifer, you and I talked a little bit offline about this, but like the social media thing, it
Mhm.
doesn't take long to scroll on Instagram to realize that like there is something going on here. There's something wrong here.
Yeah.
I can hit my search bar on Instagram and it's literally like a lot of it's all vices. It's
Yeah.
all triggers.
Yeah.
It's like candy for the mind.
Yeah.
And I think that you're gonna feel a lot better if you read a deep book and have a deeply meaningful conversation. And so
Right.
NLU, what we try to do is create a community of people who are sick and tired of the fluffy, shallow lives.
Yeah.
And we really want to live in our calling. And that's the only rule at NLU is that you can't suppress other people.
Yeah.
The only rule. If you're a bully and you are trying to tell other people how they should and shouldn't be, you aren't allowed in NLU. Everyone else is welcome.
Right. I love what you said, because I do. I have, it's not even a love hate. It just, this social media, like that's where I get to fulfill, create my impact. That's part of my fulfillment. But if I go too far, it can become this pleasure, not getting enough. And then we're all human, right? So how do we, because so many of us are online, so many of us coaches, we're creating impact this way. How do we create this edge with fulfillment? Boundaries around fulfillment. I don't even know if that's the right word. How do we optimize that daily when we're honestly more than ever, Ellen, you probably agree, getting hit left and right, having it more accessible to be pleasurable left and right? How do we create a boundary to stay in authenticity and not go down that rabbit hole? How do we do that in this day and age? It seems a little
Mhm.
bit hard to do. I mean, we really have to stay on edge. What would you say to that?
It is more difficult to do now than ever before in
Yeah.
human history, sincerely. But we also have huge amazing things too with technology. It's a double-edged sword. I've had a lot of conversations with some of my older mentors about this. They genuinely think the world used to be better. And I understand what they mean by that. What they mean is that like there wasn't so much bombardment of information and bombardment of triggers and even just as far as like okay, there used to only be 50 TV channels and there wasn't so much overwhelm in this decision fatigue of like you go down to the grocery store and you want to buy spaghetti sauce and there's 27 different types and it's like, "Oh my god, I have too many decisions to make." So, how do we optimize for fulfillment? First, you decide to
Yeah.
define everyone out there listening, write down what does fulfillment mean to me?
Mm,
And then write out your answer,
mm,
optimize for that.
yeah.
Now, here's how you get fulfillment, I believe. Growth and contribution.
Yeah.
So there's a framework that will help anyone listening that can help you understand whether or not you're living in your calling.
Yeah.
Imagine a Venn diagram with four circles. The upper left and the center, by the way, is like a North Star. So the upper left is what do strangers compliment you about?
Mm,
Okay.
mm,
Which is AKA, what are you really, really, really good at?
yeah.
Like naturally good at
Right.
your gifting. Okay. Next one, what do you sincerely love to do?
Yeah.
This can be anything. Do a brain dump of anything you can think of. Like for me, I would never be a good chef. You know why? I don't give a shit about cooking. I couldn't even pretend to. If you were talking to me
Right.
about cooking right now, I wouldn't even be a good speaker. I just don't care. Right? Okay. So upper left is what are you sincerely great at? Upper right is what do you sincerely love?
Mm,
Okay. Bottom left, what does the market actually pay for?
mm,
So the weird example I use is maybe you can spit a cherry pit 50 yards. Nobody cares. There's no one's going to pay you for that. But if you can throw a football 50 yards, see, you can make millions of dollars.
right,
Right.
right, right.
Okay. And then the bottom right is what did you grow up around?
Mm,
So what do you love?
mhm,
What does the market pay for?
mhm.
What did you grow up around? And what are you sincerely really, really good at?
Yeah.
Whatever's in the center of those four circles
Mm,
is going to be your calling. There's
mm,
going to be some common denominator that'll jump out. For me, it's coaching and consulting.
yeah.
There's nothing that I feel more equipped and more called to do in the world. And obviously, podcasting and speaking are vehicles to help me coach and consult.
Yeah.
And even with the team, I'm the one who's doing team development because that's my calling. I think that's the one thing in the world that I'm uniquely suited to do
Yeah.
more than anything else. And so since I've found that and I live and I design my life around that, I'm super fulfilled because that's how I contribute at my greatest level. That's how I grow at my greatest level. And everything outside of that, yesterday we were on a meetup and one of the listeners had a question come in that said, like, what have you sacrificed in order to succeed at NLU? It was about entrepreneurship, this speech. And I said, honestly, write down these words on a page: mission, business, team, products and services, clients and customers.
Mm,
The mission, basically, I've sacrificed everything that's outside of alignment with that.
yeah.
For me, everything is about the mission and growth and contribution
Yeah.
in the own unique flavor of those bubbles that I told you about. So, how does somebody live a fulfilled life in a day and age when there's more distraction and pleasure than ever before? They decide to They figure out exactly who they are through deploying amazing self-awareness and asking yourself tough questions.
Yeah.
And then you just try to get more percentage, more percentage, more percentage closer to that.
Right. And you know what I have found is I've gotten more narrowed in.
Hi everyone, my name is Bianca Thomas. I am the host of the Y Power podcast, and I'm also a client of both Kevin and Alan. I had the absolute pleasure and honor and honestly the blessing of meeting both of these extraordinary men at the beginning of their journey, when the Hyperconscious podcast was just at its beginning. And to keep it short and sweet, these two guys have completely changed my life. Because of them, I've been able to really learn how to love myself, to express myself, to go past my fears and have the courage to do things that I never thought I would have done, like having my own podcast. I'm a little over time, but I just want to say, if there's anyone out there who wants a coach, who wants help, who wants two people to lean on, it's these two guys. They are rare, extraordinary men, and I'm so lucky to have them in my life.
I've gone through 4 categories like that 4 you talked about. My true north is I don't feel like I'm sacrificing. It,
Right.
it feels so zoned in. So it's like, oh my gosh, you're sacrificing drinking or whatever. I'm like, that's not who I am. That is, and the more you get centered on that, I find all these sacrifices and these little mistakes or pitfalls you fall into is just again learning more because you are so zoned in on your, as you know, Hill talked about, definitive purpose. Like you're so zoned in, everything else just is not a sacrifice. Everything else is fleeting. You're just so zoned in. Would you agree with that?
100%. So I talk often about what Zig Ziglar used to say about wandering generality versus a meaningful specific.
Hmm.
And everyone out there asks themselves, am I a wandering generality? Am I someone who doesn't really know who they are, doesn't really know who they were, doesn't really know who they aspire to be, doesn't really know their core values or their core aspirations or their core beliefs? If you are, that's okay. We've all been there.
Yeah.
But the only wrong answer is to not figure that out.
Yeah.
Start figuring it out. Start diagnosing. Start examining. Like, you know what? I don't really like when I do that, and that. I don't really like spending time with these types of people. I don't really like this, but I do love this. So if you do feel like a wandering generality, you probably feel lost.
Yeah.
And when you feel lost, you're most likely having trouble discerning what you should and shouldn't do, what you
Right.
should and shouldn't say, who you should and shouldn't spend time with.
Yeah.
I think life is a journey of becoming more and more and more of a meaningful specific.
Yeah.
I'm on chapter 32 of this life,
Mm.
and I'm more clear on who I am and who I aspire to be now than I ever have been.
Yeah.
But I'm not as clear as I will be at 33.
Yeah.
And I'm not as clear as I will be at 34 and 35 and 36. And so, yeah, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice when you're living in alignment with your highest self. Although I will admit, for a short time, it does kind of feel painful to give up the old person's, places, things, and ideas in order to really rise into that new version of yourself. And there's so many metaphors for this. There's the lobster in the old shell.
Mhm.
There's the shedding of the old snake skin. There's the
Yeah.
phoenix from the ashes. There's life is about transforming and then retransforming and then retransforming
Yeah.
and consistently uncovering who you really are
Yeah.
through that process and then amplifying that uniqueness that you have.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you are out there listening and you feel like you're a wandering generality, that's okay. Accept that, own that, and then be like, you know what? I'm going to go get more clear now. And I'm going to do it by asking tough questions. What do I really want to do with my life?
Yeah.
What's the contribution I really want to have? Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to be devil's advocate a little bit.
Please.
It's really interesting. I've also lost close family members, my two dads and my sister. I watched her and honored to see her go into the next life, and she had that same thing. I wish I would have spoke up. I wish I would have led more this life. I wish I would have done it my way, not their way, right? And she was very different of purpose. She had her gifts. She had all these four things you're talking about, Alan. Like, she was dialed in. She was a high exec leadership. She was brilliant. She was smart, but she still struggled with saying no sometimes to stuff that was not in alignment with her. And I find it is a human desire, right? It's a safety thing that we want to belong. We want to connect to community. We want to belong to something. Sometimes it trumps our desires. Not that it's right. We want to lead that meaningful life. We're at the end of our life and we regret not leading our life that we want to lead. But we have this huge draw of safety of wanting to be a part of people, even if it's the wrong people. How do people take these four things you're talking about? Like, I'm so dialed in. This is my truth. This is what I'm going to do, Alan. I struggle with saying no to people. I struggle with them rejecting me in my truth. How do they get past that? Just certain moving the needle in that direction? Because I see that more times than not. The leaders know what they want. They know what they want to do. They have a vision and mission and they know their gifts, but they're a little nervous and they're tippy-toeing around things because of this need to soften things and belong. Like, what would you say to that?
I would say that there's a couple things. There's one of the reasons. What is the core reason why you're having trouble saying no? And I think it can be one of two things. It's either you have a belief that you can do it all, which, by the way, is false in my opinion. And I used to have that. I used to have I literally wanted to write a book called The Best of Both Worlds. And the reason why is because I wanted to believe, AKA wishful thinking, that I could be this person who achieves his dreams, but also be over here spending time with people who aren't on that mission. That was false. And I've had to mature through that. You have to give up to grow up. And I know that sounds hardcore, but like, if you're going to spend time with 15-year-olds, you're going to have 15-year-old results. And I don't mean 15 in terms of age. I mean 15 in terms of maturity.
Right.
And so if you keep hanging out with immature people who aren't growth oriented, you're not going to grow as much. And that's just the way it is. And just remember that spending time with someone who's only aligned at a 7 out of 10, you're not creating the space in your life for the 10s out of 10.
Yeah.
And I know that's difficult, especially with family members and things like that. So if you do have the belief that you can do both, achieve your dreams and spend time with all the same people, I would argue that that's ill-advised, and you might end up with regret at the end of your life when you realize that you didn't achieve what you really wanted to. And I don't mean achieve in terms of accolades, but I mean have become the person you really wanted to be.
Yeah.
It takes hard work. Personal development is personal.
Yeah.
It's so much work, like, but it's the best work.
Yeah.
It's the most fulfilling work.
Yeah.
I'll give a simple example of this. Let's say 3 weeks from now, all of us are going to go to the beach together. Anyone out there listening? Some of us are going to be proud of the work we put in the last 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us are going to have a mirror and go, you know what? I've been really letting it ride. And there's no exception to this.
Mm-mm.
It is what it is. I didn't make the rules. Like, you either are doing what it takes to grow towards your goals and desires and ambitions and aspirations, or you're not.
Yeah.
A person, place, thing, or idea is either aligned or it's not.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as a bunch of 10s out of 10. Right now, being on this podcast with you is more aligned with my mission than the other things that I could be doing with this time. If it wasn't, I would not be here.
Yeah.
And pretending to myself that I can do all these 2s out of 10 and still live a level 10 life is delusion. So that's number one. Number two, I think some people don't have a misbelief. They just don't believe in themselves enough. Okay. So if you're not that first category, you probably are the second category. Because the people in that first category, they do believe in themselves. They just have deluded themselves into thinking they don't have to say no. They can do it all. Okay. You might have a different category. The different category here is someone without self-confidence, without self-belief, and without self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
This category, you're actually lying to yourself in a different way.
Yeah.
You've been convinced, or you've convinced yourself that you're not good enough to be successful. So why not try to fit in?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't believe in yourself enough and your own brighter future enough, of course you're going to say yes to everything.
Of course.
Okay. Why would Warren Buffett invest in a stock that he didn't believe would grow?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is he wouldn't.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you're struggling to do the hard work, you're struggling to invest in yourself, you're struggling to read books and to listen to podcasts, you're struggling to go to the gym, maybe you don't have enough self-belief.
Yeah.
What I've found is that if someone doesn't have a lot of self-belief, they won't design a future because they don't believe it's possible.
Right.
And if you are that person, what I'm telling you is you have to get around someone who believes in themselves and who will believe in you. You can hire it if you want to. This is why coaches are a thing.
Yeah.
I've had so many coaches and mentors in my life, it's not even funny. And there's no chance I'd be the man I am right now without them.
Yeah.
And if you think that you don't need a coach or a mentor, I would say that you're being naive and at least give it a shot. And if it's the wrong fit, go try someone else. I mean, every successful person out there who has lived and achieved their dreams attributes their mentors and their coaches.
Totally.
Like, no one does it alone. And you have to be around people. Put it this way. If you don't believe in yourself, most likely this is true. You've spent a lot of time around people who also don't believe in themselves and probably don't believe in you. All right, let's flip the script. That's not working. Now let's get around a bunch of people who do believe in themselves and who do believe in you.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why we created NLU as well.
And, it's really funny, Alan, I've been in both those categories at some point in my life. And it's really interesting. We talk about choosing this higher level enlightenment, choosing your past state is hard, but the other way is hard too. Choose your heart. We hear this phrase all the time. Sitting on the fence, being on both sides, kind of get a little stick up your butt. It's not very comfortable. You have a lot of emotional turmoil in just resistance going on all the time. That was
All
me.
the time.
Point where I was like, no self-worth, no confidence. And I was just frustrated. I was saying yes to everything. Getting more. I mean, I just think about that. And now as I'm anchoring in, that noise is quiet. No, yes. No, yes. It's amazing how what you said, that is so powerful what you said earlier. You guys rewind this episode with the 4 categories, get super dialed in. There'll be nuances and shifts as you go through this stage, the different stages of life, but that core is still there. That true north is still there. I love how you said that. We have a lot of people out there that we look at that we think are the next level, Alan. We see it on social media, then we realize like, no, that isn't the level I want to be at. They're not in integrity. You're not aligned with me. What do you think needs to change out there in the world as examples of being the next level. Who's next level to you? What does that even mean to you?
Amazing. Okay. What does it mean to be next level?
Yeah.
What it means to be next level is, what are you doing and being when no one's watching?
Mm,
I
yeah.
I don't really care that much about how flashy you want to be perceived.
Yeah.
What I really care about is what you're doing when no one's watching.
Yeah.
I've been hoodwinked way too many times in my life by people who are full of shit.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a real disservice, especially to young people,
Mm,
because we're portraying something that isn't real, and people are aspiring to these things, and it's the blind leading the blind, because these people didn't actually do it themselves. I can think of a couple people in particular who literally, they have a business builder in their corner who helped them so much, but yet they never gave credit to that person. And
mm,
so the world thinks that they're the reason, and it's really frustrating at times. So for me, I want to be an optimist here. So let's do this. What does being next level mean to me? Being next level means that the person you are behind the scenes when no one's watching is the same or better than the person you showcase.
yeah.
And I'm telling you, that is extremely rare. And I've been guilty of the opposite as well. When I was younger and I didn't know this and I was working in corporate, I would try to make myself look more successful than I really was. I'm
Mm,
telling you, after my car accident, I realized that was a losing game,
right.
and I flipped the script. And now I would rather work my butt off in the gym alone by myself and feel good about it
Yeah.
than post a selfie on social media. Now, don't get me wrong, I still post photos. I'm
Yes.
still
Yeah.
trying to help people.
Right.
We have character over everything, integrity over everything. We have certain core values that are in the contract of anyone on the NLU team, and everybody signs and says, I intend to live up to these core values and to this mission.
Yeah.
One of the core values is character over everything. And by one of them, I mean the very first one.
Mm,
Character over everything. So perception, if I give a speech in front of 10,000 people who have never met me, I have 10,000 different perceptions of me.
mm-hmm.
But guess what? I still only have one character.
Mm,
And the character is who I am to my beautiful girlfriend, who I am to my business partner, who I am to my family, who I am to myself,
yeah.
who I am when no one's watching, when I'm off stage.
Yeah.
Who you are when you're off stage matters so much more to me than who you are when you're on stage. That's what being next level is, in my opinion.
It's just integrity with your character. And there's this energy that happens, even if they agree or disagree with what you're talking about, they're drawn to you. There's
Mm,
this thing that happens that I find out these people are really who they are. People are drawn to that. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie 7 Pounds. Will
I
Smith's
have.
character
Yes. Yeah.
says to one of
Yeah.
the guys, I don't want to give the movie away for those of you that have not watched it, but he's giving one of his organs away to this dude. And the guy was like, why are you doing this for me? And he's like, well, you're just a good person. He said, no, really. Why are you doing this for me? And Will Smith's character said, because you're a good person when no one is watching. And I
Yeah.
remember that hit me because I thought of that word, right? What you just said, character, that it makes me feel so, going back to what he said, good, fulfilled. I get tears in my eyes talking, fulfilled, that I
Mhm.
am checking my character all the time, living high integrity behind closed doors. And that is so fulfilling to me. And people are drawn to that. And when they don't see it, it just makes them, it repels, right? But that's why I believe in that too, Alan. And I love that you just said that. And
Mhm.
you know, it's funny, I'm just going to reveal, I was at a grocery store, this is a couple of weeks ago, and I was just in a bad mood. I was being edgy with the cashier person. I started walking out. I literally did a post on being positive or something like the day before. It was
Ooh.
like, I was really unkind to her for no apparent reason. And even if there was a reason, still don't have a reason to do it, right? I turned back around and I tapped her on the shoulder and she kind of jumped back. And I said, ma'am, I really apologize for treating you really rudely. I'm in a bad mood, but that's not on you. And I just want you to receive that. So I really apologize. It game changed her. And you know what? It game changed me that
Mhm.
day. I'm like, I got to live in that integrity. I want to be that good person behind closed doors, even have to constantly check it and monitor it. And I love what you said. And that to me means next level as well.
Mm. Jennifer, you felt more fulfilled after going back and saying, listen, I'm sorry. Owning your shit is one of the most difficult things in the world, but it's
Yeah.
so important. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is perfect. But
Yeah.
do you take responsibility for what you say and do, and what you don't say
Yeah.
and what you don't do? Maybe
Yeah.
you didn't apologize, but you should have.
Yeah.
And the ownership piece is so. You asked me originally, like, if anyone's out there, you really want the cheat code to being fulfilled, complete full ownership. Everything you say is your responsibility. Everything you fail to say
Mm.
is your responsibility. Everything you do is your responsibility. Everything you fail to do is your responsibility. And by the way, how you react to what's done to you is
Yes.
also your responsibility. It's not your fault that you had an alcoholic parent. It's not your fault that you got beaten or abused or whatever, but it is your responsibility to do something with that shit.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what makes the difference. And I just wish we were taught that in school.
Yeah.
Genuinely, we never learned a self-improvement course in school.
Yeah.
We never learned about nutrition much in school. We never learned about money. It took me
Yeah.
to my master's degree before I took a finance course.
Yeah.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
wild. It's like we use money every day.
Right.
We
Right.
we have no self-aware. It's wild how these things aren't courses. I remember, and then I'll get off the soapbox, but before the Next Level University, before the Hyperconscious podcast, I had a little business. It was called Alan Lazaros LLC, and the slogan was this: "What you'll never learn in school, but desperately, in all caps, need to know."
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I was trying to get speeches from schools, and that didn't work very well because of the slogan.
That is so amazing. That is so amazing.
Funny.
It's this is something I really want to end with, Ellen, because this is maybe a cheesy phrase, but it is so true. The children are our future. They're
Mhm.
looking at a lot of stuff. They're getting more stimulation, more TV time, more social media time than ever before. I see 5-year-olds with cell phones.
Oh yeah.
What do we need to do, whether it be at home, in the school system, to catch them early, to create this high integrity behind closed doors, to create this next level starting at a very young age? What do we need to do you think, as a nation, to start penetrating this thought process of being next level, of high integrity, high character behind closed doors with our kids? What do we do with that? What would you say?
Appreciate these questions so much. So I was at a Qdoba yesterday. My girlfriend and I just got a new home. We're so excited, and we actually ended up making this makeshift sort of bed on the floor. We had dinner together on the floor of the new home because it's not furnished yet. And but before it, I went and picked up Qdoba for us. And while I was in there, I was sitting there in line, and I looked over to my right, and there was a table of young people because it's summer and they're all out and about. And there was, I think, 5 of them, and all 5 of them were on their phones. And
Mm,
again, I'm not gonna be like the old guy who's like, "Oh my god, phones are the devil." None of that.
right, right.
Here's what I'm saying. To answer your question, I think we all just have to lead by example. And I actually think that I do embody a lot of the things that those young people value. And without an ego, I'll say this wholeheartedly. When I was walking out, I was dressed nice, I'm in shape, blah blah blah. The girls were looking, and so were the guys.
Mhm.
And the girls were looking, and maybe they thought I was cute, and the guys were looking and envying the fact that the girls were looking. If I were to get a chance to meet those kids,
Mm,
I would be able to authentically talk about like what it really took to become this man and who I really am.
mm,
I think that emotional pain is a guarantee. I think that vice and virtue are universal languages.
yeah,
All of us have gone down the vice road. I'm guilty of it too.
yeah,
I've done drugs, I've done alcohol, I've been unkind. Like I've definitely done that. It isn't fulfilling, and it never will be, no matter how accessible those vices
yeah.
are. And so alls I can say is this Abraham Lincoln quote: "Leading by example is not the best way to lead, it's the only way."
Mm,
So what do? We just literally have to lead by example.
yeah,
And yes, I'm going to still post on social media. Yes, I'm still going to have teaser clips. Yes, I'm going to post pictures of Emilia and I and our dog. And yes, I'm going to do the social media thing.
Yeah.
But what I know for sure is that I'm not going to portray something that isn't authentic. I'm not going to be a part of this problem, which is the cars and the clothes and the homes and the bottles and the models and the bikini. Like it's not going to fulfill you.
Right.
And young people, when I was a little kid, when I was in high school, I was envious of the people with the great body and the guy who got all the girls. And I was, okay. We have to embody what they value and then teach them what it really took behind the scenes. And then they'll want to embody the character over everything too.
Yeah.
Because being kind and having a strong character, it's for free. It costs you nothing, and it never goes out of style. It costs you nothing financially. What it does cost you is sweat equity and discipline and commitment and being someone who keeps the promises they make to themselves and the promises they make to their highest self. And so that's what we do. We lead by example. There is no other solution other than leading by example, I think.
I love it. I love it. Alan, we could go on for another hour and we'll probably have to have you back on, my friend, but this has been so amazing. Just the jewels you've dropped have been so empowering for me, and I know it's going to be so empowering for our audience, but I know they're going to want to reach you. What's the best way to connect with you, to get more support from you?
At Instagram is the best way. You can DM me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and you can Google my name, and all three of those will come up. Alan, last name Lazaros, Lazaros, and then you can also go to nextleveluniverse.com, not Next Level University, nextleveluniverse.com. Reach out. My Instagram handle is alazarus88. At alazarus88, ALAZAROS88. That's the year I was born, 1988. I look 12, but I'm actually 32. No, but seriously, reach out. Between me and my assistant, we get back to absolutely everyone, and I would love to hear from you.
That's amazing. So before we leave, Alan, what is the next thing you're doing to create next level for you?
The next thing we're doing. So I'm super excited about this. So in 2022, Kevin and I and the NLU team, Next Level U team, are intending on doing Next Level Live 4 times. So it's going to be a live event. We're doing it in February, and it's going to be an in-person live event, assuming COVID and all that. And we're going to do one every quarter from now on, starting February 2022.
Wow.
And so that I'm super, super pumped about. And so hopefully we will see you there, Jennifer.
100%.
And I'm super, super, super excited because we've co-hosted events before, and there's something about getting in a room and connecting with people in real time on this stuff that just changes people's lives, genuinely.
And you guys that are listening, you better get your tickets when they start coming out, because the next level people that will be coming to this event, I guarantee, are going to happen quickly and buying a lot of tickets.
100%.
That's amazing.
We plan on selling them all out. That is the goal. So,
Alan, thank you so much. It's been an honor having you on this show. It truly has been so honoring to just have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I appreciate you. And thank you so much for everyone's attention.
Absolutely. You guys, we are signing off on the Soul Purpose Leadership Podcast. Please leave your comments. We want to continue to create next level in you and honor and support you where you're at and where you want to go. We will see you next time.